Imagine finding an old, dark, dirty wheat penny buried in the bottom of your pocket, hidden away in a forgotten jar, or tucked inside an inherited collection, and thinking it is only worth one single cent. Most people would not hesitate to spend it. In fact, thousands of old wheat pennies disappear back into circulation, are tossed into vending machines, or are left sitting in cup holders every single day because nobody stops to look closely. But what if that worn little coin has survived some of the most important periods in American history? What if the dirt, the dark spots, and the worn edges are actually hiding a numismatic treasure that experienced collectors spend years trying to find? Before you spend another old wheat penny, stop and check it carefully. The coins we are looking at today have captured the attention of serious numismatists for decades. Not because they shine like brand new quarters, but because their history, their originality, and the hidden details they carry continue to fascinate people who know exactly what to look for. Today, we are taking a deep, detailed look at three specific wheat pennies that routinely fool the average person. We will examine why collectors study every single mark, every color change, and every tiny feature on these coins. You will learn why cleaning can permanently destroy a coin's collector appeal, the subtle clues that many people miss before unknowingly spending a remarkable piece of history, and exactly what separates an ordinary survivor from a masterpiece of American coinage. First coin, 1951 S. Wheat Penny. Our story begins in the year 1951, a time when the United States was experiencing tremendous change. The nation was navigating the complexities of the Korean War, American industry was operating at full capacity, and millions of people relied on physical coins every single day to buy groceries, newspapers, bus tickets, and coffee. During this remarkable period, the United States Mint was working tirelessly to keep the nation's economy moving. Far out on the West Coast, the San Francisco Mint quietly struck millions of wheat pennies. No one working the coin presses back then could have imagined that many decades later, collectors would still be searching through old jars, inherited collections, and forgotten drawers, hoping to discover well-preserved survivors from that historic year. Now, take a very close look at the front of the coin, known to collectors as the obverse. You will immediately recognize the familiar, dignified portrait of President Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, a masterpiece designed by the renowned sculptor Victor David Brenner. Across the top rim appears the inspiring national inscription, "In God We Trust." To Lincoln's left is the word liberty, representing one of America's most cherished ideals, while the date 1951 appears to his right. But notice something incredibly important directly beneath that date. You will see a small, distinct letter, S. That tiny mark is not a scratch and it is not a mistake. It is the mint mark identifying that this specific wheat penny was produced at the legendary San Francisco Mint. To an experienced collector, that small S immediately changes the narrative of the coin. The San Francisco Mint historically produced fewer coins than the massive facilities in Philadelphia and Denver, making S-minted coins a particular point of interest for anyone trying to build a complete, comprehensive set of wheat pennies. Turn the coin over to the reverse, and you will see the classic design that gave this beloved series its famous nickname. Two elegant, curving wheat ears frame each side of the coin, symbolizing America's agricultural strength and prosperity. At the very top rim is the traditional Latin motto, a pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Across the center, you will find the bold, prominent words, 1 cent, with United States of America displayed proudly beneath. Although this design circulated for decades, collectors still admire its simple elegance and profound historical significance. Every single letter, every engraved line, and every grain of detail becomes part of the story that this coin carries through time. Even though it feels small and insignificant in your hand, this wheat penny was carefully engineered to strict government specifications. The 1951 S wheat penny is composed of 95% copper, with the remaining 5% made up of a mixture of tin and zinc. This specific metallic alloy gives the coin the warm, rich copper appearance that collectors instantly recognize and deeply appreciate. It weighs exactly 3.11 grams, measures precisely 19.05 millimeters in diameter, has a thickness of around 1.2 millimeters, and features a completely smooth, plain edge. These physical specifications remain consistent across regular production, allowing modern collectors to measure, weigh, and compare coins to quickly notice anything unusual or counterfeit. The physical characteristics may seem ordinary to the average citizen, but together they form the foundation for one of America's most celebrated and heavily collected coin series. Now, here is where countless people make a massive, costly mistake. They find a 1951 wheat penny that is covered with dark dirt, heavy black stains, green oxidation spots, or decades of natural toning, and they immediately assume it is worthless. Some individuals even take out a cloth, baking soda, or harsh chemical polish and scrub the coin until it shines brightly. Experienced collectors do exactly the opposite. They know that an old coin's surface tells its entire life story. Natural aging, honest circulation, and untouched originality often reveal far more historical value than a polished, artificially shiny surface ever could. A dirty coin is not automatically valuable, but neither should it ever be dismissed without a much closer look. When a 1951 wheat penny lands in the palm of an experienced numismatist, they do not immediately ask how much it is worth. Instead, they slowly rotate the coin under a bright, direct light, studying every tiny detail through a magnifying loupe. They examine the color, the texture of the metal, the wear on the highest points of the design, and even the smallest contact marks left behind after decades of traveling through cash registers and pockets. Most people simply see an old penny with dirt. A collector sees a story that has survived more than 7 decades of American history. One feature that immediately attracts attention is the coin's dark surface or accumulated grime. Many people mistakenly believe that a darker coin is permanently damaged, while others think it should be clean to look brand new. Both assumptions lead to disaster. In almost all cases, those darker surfaces are simply the result of natural aging, decades of circulation, and long-term storage in varied environments. Original toning is highly appreciated in the numismatic community because it reflects the coin's genuine history and journey. Once that original surface is scrubbed away, it can never, ever be replaced. This is exactly why experienced collectors repeat the same golden rule over and over again. Never clean your coin. A polished wheat penny might look brighter and prettier to the naked, untrained eye, but professional collectors and grading services recognize a cleaned coin almost instantly. Tiny, microscopic hairline scratches, an unnatural harsh shine, and an altered color are all immediate signs that the original surface has been violently disturbed. A cleaned coin may still hold a tiny bit of collectible interest, but it loses almost all of the originality that makes older copper coins so incredibly appealing and valuable. Patience protects history, while cleaning erases it forever. When evaluating the condition of the 1951 collectors look closely at Lincoln's cheekbone, his jawline, and the fine strands of hair above his ear. On a heavily circulated coin, these high points will be worn completely smooth. However, on a highly preserved mint state example, every strand of hair will be sharply defined. The reverse wheat stalks are also heavily scrutinized. The parallel lines at the top of the wheat ears are often the first to wear down. If a 1951 wheat penny retains sharp, distinct lines on the wheat stalks and blazing original red copper luster, it moves from being a simple pocket change find to a serious condition rarity. Serious collectors competing in registry sets will pay substantial premiums for a coin that has been authenticated and graded by a professional third-party service at a very high mint state level, simply because so few of them survived in flawless condition. The vast majority of these coins were immediately pushed into circulation to fuel the booming 1950s economy. Finding one that escaped the wear and tear of daily commerce is a thrilling experience that keeps collectors endlessly hunting. Second coin, 1953 wheat penny. As we move forward just a couple of years in history, we encounter another fascinating chapter in the story of American coinage. The year is 1953, and the United States has transitioned into a new era under the presidency of Dwight D. Eisenhower. The Korean War was coming to a close. Television sets were becoming a staple in living rooms across the country. The middle class was booming, and the American dream was flourishing. In the midst of this incredible post-war prosperity, the demand for everyday currency was staggering. To keep up with this booming economy, the United States Mint operated at a relentless pace. Once again, our focus turns to the West Coast, where the San Francisco Mint was busy striking the 1953 wheat penny. What makes the San Francisco issues from the early 1950s so incredibly captivating to today's collectors is the specific set of challenges the Mint faced during this era, and how those challenges physically manifested on the coins themselves. Take a very close look at the obverse of the 1953 S. You see the same iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the word liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." And right there, nestled neatly beneath the date of 1953, is the familiar S mint mark. However, experienced collectors know that finding a truly spectacular, flawless example of a 1953 S is notoriously difficult. During this time period, the San Francisco Mint was known to use their coin dies for extended periods before replacing them. A die is the heavy steel stamp that features the negative image of the coin, which is slammed into the blank copper plancher under immense pressure to create the final product. Because these dies were used repeatedly to strike hundreds of thousands of coins, they eventually suffered from severe metal fatigue and die wear. As a result, many 1953 wheat pennies that you might find in an old jar or a grandparent's collection will exhibit what collectors call a mushy or soft strike. The details in Lincoln's hair might look blurry, the letters in Liberty might appear thick and undefined, and the edges of the coat might fade softly into the background field of the coin rather than dropping off sharply. This wasn't caused by someone rubbing the coin in their pocket for 50 years. It was actually manufactured that way on the day it was born because the die was exhausted. Because so many of these coins were struck with worn dies. Finding a 1953 wheat penny that features a razor-sharp strike, where every hair on Lincoln's head is crisp, the wheat lines on the reverse are deeply etched, and the mint mark is perfectly defined, is a remarkably rare event. When advanced collectors search for a 1953 to add to a high-end registry set, they are absolutely obsessed with strike quality. Turn the coin to the reverse. Once again, the two wheat stalks embrace the words 1 cent and United States of America. On a typical weakly struck 1953 the upper tips of the wheat ears might look totally smooth, even if the coin has never been circulated. If you happen to possess an example where those wheat lines are intensely sharp and clearly separated, you are holding something that stands out significantly from the vast majority of its peers. The composition remains identical to its 1951 counterpart, exactly 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.17 grams with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters. This specific copper alloy is highly reactive to its environment. Over the course of 70 years, a 1953 wheat penny might have been stored in a damp basement, a hot attic, inside a leather pouch, or wrapped in a paper envelope. Each of these environments interacts chemically with the copper, producing a unique patina or toning on the coin. Sometimes this interaction creates breathtaking, natural colors, shades of deep chocolate brown, hints of mahogany, or even subtle flashes of violet and blue. Other times it creates dark, unattractive black spotting, or the dreaded green oxidation known as verdigris. This is where the untrained eye makes a fatal error. Someone might find a 1953 that is naturally darkened to a beautiful rich brown over 70 years. Thinking it looks dirty, they might dip it in vinegar, rub it with a pencil eraser, or use a commercial metal polish to bring back the bright orange copper color. This is the ultimate numismatic tragedy. By doing this, they strip away decades of natural historical patina. Furthermore, the chemical reaction of cleaning copper often leaves the coin with a harsh, unnatural, bright pinkish hue that collectors immediately recognize and avoid at all costs. The value of a clean coin plummets instantly. A well-circulated, naturally brown 1953 with honest wear is always more desirable and holds more historical integrity than a coin that has been artificially stripped of its past. For the 1953 wheat penny, condition and eye appeal are everything. Professional third-party grading services use the internationally recognized Sheldon scale, grading coins from a low of 1 to a perfect 70. For a circulated 1953 graded fine or very fine, the collector value is quite modest, serving as a wonderful and affordable piece of history for beginner collectors. However, if an individual discovers a 1953 that was miraculously pulled from a canvas mint bag in 1953, safely stored in an inert environment, and survived to this day with a flawless strike, free of distracting carbon spots, and blazing with original red mint luster, the situation changes entirely. These ultra-high-grade survivors, certified at levels like Mint State 67 Red, are fiercely fought over in major auction houses. The difference in value between a normal, weakly struck, brown uncirculated example and a sharply struck, flawless red example can be thousands of dollars. It is this incredible disparity that forces collectors to pull out their magnifying glasses and study every single millimeter of the 1953 wheat penny before they ever consider spending it or giving it away. Third coin, 1955 wheat penny. Now we arrive at a coin that sends a jolt of pure electricity through the heart of any seasoned collector. The year is 1955. America is in the absolute peak of the fabulous 50s. Rock and roll is taking over the airwaves. Massive cars with giant tail fins are rolling off assembly lines, and the country is experiencing a wave of cultural and economic optimism. At the massive Philadelphia Mint, presses were striking coins at an astonishing, deafening speed, producing hundreds of millions of wheat pennies to satisfy the insatiable commercial demand of the era. If you look at the obverse of the 1955 wheat penny, the first thing you must do, before you do anything else, is look beneath the date. You will notice that the space directly under the numbers 1955 is completely blank. There is no D for Denver, and there is no S for San Francisco. As experienced numismatists know perfectly well, the absence of a mint mark during this era simply means the coin was born in the mother mint in Philadelphia. The 1955 Philadelphia wheat penny is a coin of legendary status, and its reputation forces collectors to stop and carefully scrutinize every single example they ever encounter in the wild. While millions of normal, perfectly standard 1955 wheat pennies were produced and circulated, this specific year and mint location gave birth to one of the most famous, most highly sought after, and most visually spectacular mint errors in the entire history of United States coinage, the legendary 1955 double die verse. Because this famous error exists, nobody, and I mean nobody, who knows anything about coins will ever pass up a 1955 no mint mark wheat penny without inspecting it under bright light and heavy magnification. Even if you have a completely normal 1955 wheat penny, understanding what happened that year is crucial to understanding the coin in your hand. During the complex minting process, a working die is created by being struck by a master hub, which transfers the design. In 1955, at the Philadelphia Mint, a working die was struck once by the hub, but then, due to a mechanical misalignment, it was struck a second time slightly offset from the first. This created a die where the date 1955 and the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust were dramatically and visibly doubled. This wasn't a tiny microscopic error. The lettering was practically overlapping itself, creating a dramatic shadow effect that you can easily see with the naked eye. This flawed die was put into a coin press and it operated for a full shift, striking roughly 20,000 to 24,000 pennies before a mint inspector caught the terrible mistake. However, instead of melting the entire batch and holding up production, the mint decided that the problem wasn't severe enough to warrant destroying the coins, and they were released into circulation, heavily mixed in with millions of normal 1955 pennies. Because of that fateful decision, every single time a collector finds a 1955 wheat penny, their heart skips a beat. They immediately grab their magnifying loupe and intensely study the date and the lettering, praying to see that dramatic wide doubling. It is incredibly important to note that many people confuse true hub doubling with something called machine doubling, which is very common and adds virtually no value to the coin. Machine doubling happens when the die vibrates or shifts slightly at the exact moment it strikes the coin, creating a flat, shelf-like smearing on the edge of the letters. True hub doubling, like the famous 1955 error, features distinct, rounded, fully raised secondary letters. If you do find the genuine double die, you have uncovered a life-changing numismatic lottery ticket. But what if your 1955 wheat penny is totally normal? What if the date is crisp and single, and the lettering is perfectly standard? Does that mean the coin is just worthless pocket change? Absolutely not. A standard 1955 Philadelphia wheat penny with no mint mark is still an incredible piece of history, and exceptional examples are highly coveted. The rules of preservation, originality, and condition apply here just as strictly as they do to any other date. The coin still features the exact same specifications: 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, 3.11 grams, and a 19.05 millimeter diameter. Because the 1955 penny is so famous, advanced collectors love building sets of this specific year, and they demand perfection for their high-end registry sets. When evaluating a normal 1955 wheat penny, collectors pay incredible attention to the color designation given by grading services. Copper is unique among coinage metals because it aggressively changes color as it interacts with oxygen and environmental elements. Grading companies use three distinct classifications: red RD, red-brown RB, and brown BN. A 1955 wheat penny that is heavily circulated or has been exposed to the elements for decades will naturally oxidize to a deep, dark brown. These brown BN coins are beautiful, historically rich, and represent the vast majority of surviving examples. If a coin was lightly circulated or carefully stored for part of its life, it might retain some of its original copper glow mixed with brown oxidation, earning the red-brown RB designation. However, if a 1955 wheat penny was preserved in an airtight environment the exact moment it left the Philadelphia Mint, entirely escaping the devastating effects of oxygen, moisture, and human fingerprints, it will retain its blazing, brilliant orange-red luster. This earns the highly prestigious Red RD designation. The value gap between a completely normal, standard 1955 wheat penny in a brown circulated grade and a normal 1955 in a pristine mint state 67 red grade is absolutely staggering. You could literally be holding two coins that were struck on the exact same day by the exact same press in the exact same building. One was spent on a newspaper in 1955 and lived in pockets for 50 years, becoming dark, worn, and covered in tiny scratches. The other was placed in a protective roll and forgotten in a dark, dry safety deposit box for 7 decades. The circulated coin might be worth just a few cents over its face value, standing as a humble, silent witness to American history. The pristine red example, however, could command hundreds or even thousands of dollars at a major numismatic auction, fiercely contested by wealthy collectors who demand absolute perfection. This extreme variance in value is exactly why you must never, under any circumstances, attempt to clean, polish, or alter a 1955 wheat penny. If you find one in an old jar and it looks a little dull, your instinct might be to wipe it with a cloth to see the date better. Do not do it. By wiping that coin, you are grinding microscopic particles of dust and dirt into the soft copper surface, creating permanent hairline scratches that will immediately downgrade the coin in the eyes of any professional grader. If you use a liquid chemical dip to strip away the brown toning in hopes of making it look like a red RD coin, you will fail. The chemicals leave the coin looking completely unnatural, dead, and washed out. The numismatic community refers to these as cleaned or details coins, and they are essentially shunned by serious buyers. A genuine, honest, dirty, brown 1955 wheat penny will always command more respect, more admiration, and more value than a coin that has been tortured by a cleaning cloth. The story of these three incredible coins, the 1951S with its lower mintage and West Coast origins, the 1953S with its notoriously difficult strike quality and die wear, and the legendary 1955 with its history-making errors and color variations, proves one irrefutable point. You can never judge a book by its cover, and you can never judge an old coin by a quick glance. The people who make the greatest discoveries in the world of coin collecting are not necessarily the luckiest people. They are simply the most observant. They are the ones who refuse to spend an old wheat penny without first checking the date, hunting for the mint mark, analyzing the strike, and inspecting the surfaces under magnification. They understand that every scratch, every spot of toning, and every detail of the design is a tangible, physical link to a bygone era of American history. So the very next time you find an old, dark, seemingly worthless wheat penny sitting in the bottom of a change tray or rolling around in your car's cup holder, do not ignore it. Pick it up gently by the edges. Treat it with the respect it deserves. Study the history resting right there in the palm of your hand, and remember that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are disguised as ordinary pocket change.